Hello everyone. Today we're going to delve into a somber and unsettling incident that took place in Everett, Washington. This tragic event occurred on September 20th, 2017, and it has left a lasting impact on the local community and beyond. Let's explore the details of what transpired on that fateful day. In the early hours of September 20th, 2017, the residents of Everett, Washington, were jolted awake by the sound of loud bangs echoing through the night. The first 911 calls started flooding in around 1:55 a.m., with distressed neighbors reporting the unnerving noises. The peaceful night was abruptly shattered by these alarming sounds, leaving the community in a state of panic and confusion. Responding swiftly to the emergency calls, the police arrived at the scene shortly thereafter. The location was eerily quiet, save for the occasional murmurs of concerned residents who had gathered outside their homes, trying to make sense of the commotion. As the officers moved cautiously through the area, their search led them to a shocking discovery. Inside one of the residences, they found the lifeless body of Alicia Canales McGuire. The scene was a grim one, with clear signs that a violent crime had taken place. Alicia, a member of the community, was tragically taken away under horrifying circumstances. The discovery of her body not only confirmed the worst fears of those who had heard the disturbing sounds, but also marked the beginning of an intense investigation into her untimely death. The details surrounding Alicia Canales McGuire's death were both heartbreaking and horrifying. Her loss left a deep void in the lives of those who knew her and sparked a collective sense of grief and outrage within the community. The police, now faced with the daunting task of piecing together the events that led to this tragedy, began their meticulous work, hoping to bring justice for Alicia and her loved ones. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this incident was not just a random act of violence, but a targeted and brutal attack. The authorities worked tirelessly, sifting through evidence, interviewing witnesses, and following leads, determined to uncover the truth behind Alicia's death. The community, meanwhile, rallied together, offering support to her family and seeking solace in one another as they navigated through this dark chapter. In conclusion, the tragic incident that occurred in Everett on September 20th, 2017, serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact of violence on a community. Alicia Canales. McGuire's memory lives on, a poignant symbol of a life cut short and a call for justice that continues to resonate with those who were touched by her story. Alicia Canales McGuire was a beloved individual known for her warm spirit and dedication to her family and work. Born and raised in the close-knit community of Everett, Washington, Alicia grew up surrounded by the love and support of her family. From a young age, she exhibited a nurturing and caring nature, traits that would define her throughout her life. Alicia was deeply connected to her family, often described as the glue that held them together. She had a strong bond with her siblings, particularly her sister Amanda, with whom she shared countless memories and moments of joy. Alicia's early life was marked by her involvement in community activities and her dedication to helping others, a passion that eventually guided her career choices. In her professional life, Alicia worked as a dedicated nurse, a role that allowed her to channel her compassion and care into helping those in need. Her colleagues and patients admired her for her unwavering commitment and gentle demeanor. Alicia's work was more than just a job to her. It was a calling that she embraced wholeheartedly. Recently, Alicia had embarked on a new chapter in her life: her marriage. She had married the love of her life, and their relationship was a testament to the deep affection and mutual respect they had for each other. Her love for her family extended beyond her immediate relatives to include her new spouse, with whom she was building a future filled with hope and happiness. On the night of September 20th, 2017, Alicia was at her sister Amanda's house. The two sisters often spent time together, and it was not uncommon for Alicia to visit Amanda, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. Amanda's house, usually a place of laughter and warmth, would soon become the site of an unimaginable tragedy. When the police arrived at the scene following the alarming 911 calls, they were met with a heart-wrenching sight. Alicia's body was discovered inside Amanda's home. She was found lying on the floor, with clear evidence that she had been the victim of a violent crime. The positioning of her body indicated a sudden and brutal attack. Scattered around the room were several shell casings, suggesting that multiple shots had been fired. The presence of the casings indicated that the assailant had used a firearm, and the nature of the attack pointed to a deliberate and targeted act of violence. Despite the severity of the crime, there were no signs of a robbery. Valuables and personal belongings remained untouched, further supporting the theory that the motive behind the attack was not theft. The absence of forced entry suggested that Alicia might have known her attacker, or that the person had found another way to gain access to the house. The crime scene, though chaotic and distressing, provided crucial clues that would guide the police in their investigation. As the investigation continued, the details of that night began to paint a picture of a senseless and tragic loss. Alicia's presence at her sister Amanda's house was supposed to be a time of familial bonding, yet it ended in an unspeakable act of violence. The community, still reeling from the shock, awaited answers and justice for Alicia, whose life was tragically cut short in a place she considered safe. In the immediate aftermath of discovering Alicia Canales Maguire's body, the Everett police sprang into action, focusing their efforts on securing the crime scene and initiating the first steps of a comprehensive investigation. The scene at Amanda's house was cordoned off, with officers meticulously combing through the area for any potential evidence that could shed light on the events leading up to the tragic incident. The initial police actions were systematic and thorough. They began by securing the house to ensure that no evidence was tampered with or overlooked. Forensic teams were called in to collect physical evidence, including the shell casings found scattered around Alicia's body. This evidence was crucial in piecing together the narrative of the crime and identifying the weapon used in the attack. Concurrently, officers canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing witnesses and gathering any information that might provide leads. Neighbors who had reported hearing the loud bangs were questioned about what they saw and heard that night. Their testimonies helped establish a timeline and offered insights into any unusual activities or individuals in the vicinity around the time of the shooting. As the investigation progressed, the focus quickly turned to identifying potential suspects. Among those initially considered was Kevin Lewis, a man with a known history of conflicts involving Amanda, Alicia's sister. Kevin's past issues with Amanda were well documented, including several heated arguments and altercations that had drawn police attention before. These prior incidents made him a person of interest in the case, prompting the investigators to scrutinize his actions and whereabouts on the night of the crime. Kevin Lewis was brought in for questioning shortly after being identified as a suspect. During the interrogation, Kevin vehemently denied any involvement in Alicia's death, providing an alibi that he had spent the entire night at his own home. To support his claim, Kevin's sister and mother both attested that he was with them at the time of the incident. They maintained that Kevin had not left the house, suggesting that it would have been impossible for him to be at Amanda's house when the crime occurred. Despite the alibi provided by his family, the investigators were not entirely convinced. They decided to dig deeper, seeking additional evidence to either corroborate or refute Kevin's account of his whereabouts. One of the critical steps in this process was to review surveillance footage from the area surrounding Kevin's home. The surveillance cameras, strategically placed throughout the neighborhood, offered a potential goldmine of information. The investigators painstakingly reviewed hours of footage, looking for any signs of Kevin's movements on the night in question. The footage revealed a mixed picture. While there were no clear images of Kevin leaving his house during the time frame of the crime, there were also gaps in the footage that could not definitively account for his presence inside the house throughout the entire night. Further analysis of the surveillance footage showed some intriguing details. Vehicles passing by, individuals walking along the street, and occasional shadows and movements near Kevin's property all became points of interest. The investigators cross-referenced the times of these occurrences with the timeline established through witness testimonies and 911 calls. This meticulous work was aimed at either substantiating Kevin's alibi or exposing inconsistencies that could implicate him in the crime. The combination of Kevin's alibi and the surveillance footage left the investigation at a challenging crossroads. While Kevin's family stood by his innocence, the lack of conclusive evidence from the footage meant that the possibility of his involvement could not be entirely ruled out. This ambiguity pushed the investigators to broaden their scope, continuing to gather evidence and explore other leads that could bring clarity to Alicia's tragic death. The investigation into Alicia Canales Maguire's murder remained active and dynamic, with each new piece of information guiding the detectives closer to the truth. As they navigated through the complexities of the case, the goal was unwavering: to find justice for Alicia and provide answers to her grieving family and community. Amanda Canales, Alicia's sister, provided a poignant and revealing perspective on the tragic events that unfolded. Amanda and Kevin Lewis had a tumultuous history, characterized by frequent arguments and a toxic relationship that had long since ended. Despite their separation, Kevin's presence loomed large in Amanda's life, manifesting through numerous confrontations and aggressive behaviors that often escalated to the point of requiring police intervention. Amanda firmly believed that she, not Alicia, was the intended target on that fateful night. Her conviction stemmed from the series of troubling interactions she had endured with Kevin over the years. Kevin had a history of obsessive behavior and had harbored a deep resentment towards Amanda, which only intensified after their relationship ended. This hostility led Amanda to take legal measures to protect herself, including obtaining a restraining order against Kevin. The restraining order was meant to keep Kevin at a safe distance, legally prohibiting him from coming near Amanda or contacting her. However, Kevin's blatant disregard for the law was evident as he repeatedly violated the terms of the restraining order. Each violation was a reminder of the persistent threat he posed, and despite Amanda's efforts to safeguard herself, the fear of Kevin's retaliation lingered. On the night of the murder, Amanda was convinced that Kevin had come to her house with the intent to harm her. Alicia's presence, while a tragic twist of fate, might have inadvertently placed her in the path of danger intended for Amanda. This belief fueled Amanda's determination to see justice served for her sister, whose life was cruelly taken in what she perceived as a misdirected act of vengeance. As the initial phase of the investigation unfolded, the police continued their relentless pursuit of evidence to bring clarity to Alicia Canales Maguire's murder. The investigators returned to Amanda's house multiple times, meticulously scouring the scene for any overlooked clues that could advance the case. During one of these subsequent visits, the forensic team made a significant discovery: a set of unique shell casings that had not been previously identified. These casings were distinct in their markings and characteristics, suggesting they could be traced back to a specific firearm. The discovery of these shell casings added a new layer of complexity to the investigation, providing a tangible piece of evidence that could potentially link the crime to its perpetrator. In parallel with the forensic efforts, the detectives expanded their search for evidence beyond the immediate crime scene. They scrutinized various surveillance systems in the area, including those from nearby businesses. One such piece of footage, obtained from a Walmart located not far from Amanda's house, caught the investigators' attention. The Walmart CCTV footage revealed Kevin Lewis entering the store on the evening prior to the murder. This sighting was critical as it placed Kevin in close proximity to the crime scene within a relevant time frame. The footage showed Kevin making purchases, and the investigators were particularly interested in what those purchases entailed. They traced his transactions and examined the items he had bought, looking for anything that could be tied to the crime. The combination of the unique shell casings and the Walmart CCTV footage provided the investigators with a stronger foundation upon which to build their case. They analyzed the shell casings, comparing them to any known weapons that Kevin might have had access to. Simultaneously, they investigated the items Kevin purchased, seeking any connections to the materials found at the crime scene. Despite these promising leads, the investigation was far from straightforward. Each new piece of evidence required careful validation, and the detectives had to navigate through a maze of possibilities, corroborating facts and eliminating red herrings. The process was exhaustive, but the goal was clear: to piece together the puzzle and identify the individual responsible for Alicia's death. The dedication and persistence of the investigators underscored their commitment to solving the case. They worked tirelessly, knowing that every detail, no matter how small, could be the key to unlocking the mystery behind the tragic incident. The search for justice for Alicia Canales Maguire continued, driven by the hope that the truth would eventually emerge and bring solace to her grieving family and community. The investigation into the murder of Alicia Canales Maguire took a significant turn with a crucial breakthrough that emerged from an unexpected source. As the Everett police continued to piece together evidence, they received a tip that would dramatically shift the direction of their inquiry. A woman in Spokane contacted the authorities with startling information. She reported that Alexis Hale, a young woman known to her, had made a disturbing confession. According to the tipster, Alexis had boasted about her involvement in a violent crime that eerily matched the details of Alicia's murder. The woman's account included specifics about the incident that were not publicly known, lending credibility to her claims and prompting the investigators to take the lead seriously. With this new information, the police turned their focus to Alexis Hale and her known associates, including Jared Phelps. Both individuals had criminal backgrounds and were known to be involved in various illicit activities. The investigators began an in-depth examination of Alexis and Jared's activities, scrutinizing their social media profiles for any evidence that could link them to the crime. The social media investigation proved to be a goldmine of information. Posts, messages, and photos revealed a web of connections and activities that suggested both Alexis and Jared were involved in more than just petty crimes. One particularly damning piece of evidence was a series of private messages exchanged between Alexis and Jared around the time of Alicia's murder. These messages contained references to a job they had completed and boasted about their exploits, with chilling details that matched the events at Amanda's house. The evidence from social media, combined with the tip from Spokane, provided the investigators with a compelling case against Alexis Hale and Jared Phelps. It was now a matter of corroborating these digital breadcrumbs with physical evidence and witness testimonies to build a solid case. Armed with the new evidence, the police moved swiftly to arrest Alexis Hale and Jared Phelps. The arrests were carried out with precision, and both suspects were taken into custody without incident. During the initial interrogations, both Alexis and Jared were defiant, denying any involvement in Alicia's murder. However, the weight of the evidence against them was overwhelming. Under intense questioning, Jared Phelps eventually broke down and confessed to his role in the crime. His confession was detailed and disturbing, shedding light on the full extent of the plan and its execution. Jared revealed that the attack on Amanda's house was orchestrated by Kevin Lewis, who harbored a deep grudge against Amanda. According to Jared, Kevin had enlisted the help of both him and Alexis to carry out the crime, promising them a significant reward for their participation. Jared's confession included chilling details of the night of the murder. He described how he and Alexis had approached Amanda's house, armed and prepared to execute the plan Kevin had laid out. The intention was indeed to target Amanda, but they were taken by surprise when they encountered Alicia instead. In the chaos that ensued, they shot Alicia, mistaking her for Amanda, and fled the scene. Alexis Hale, confronted with Jared's confession and the mounting evidence, eventually admitted her involvement as well. She corroborated Jared's account, adding further details that painted a complete picture of the premeditated nature of the crime and Kevin Lewis's central role in orchestrating it. The arrests of Alexis Hale and Jared Phelps marked a significant milestone in the investigation. Their confessions not only provided a clear narrative of what transpired, but also implicated Kevin Lewis as the mastermind behind the attack. The investigators now had the pieces they needed to bring all those responsible to justice. Kevin Lewis, already a person of interest, was swiftly arrested following the confessions. The evidence, including the unique shell casings, social media messages, and the confessions from Alexis and Jared, formed a robust case against him. Kevin's involvement was undeniable, and his previous conflicts with Amanda provided a clear motive for the crime. The case of Alicia Canales Maguire's murder, once shrouded in mystery, had finally been unraveled through relentless investigative work and a critical tip from a concerned individual. The arrests and subsequent confessions brought a measure of closure to Alicia's family and the Everett community, who had been deeply affected by the senseless act of violence. Justice was set in motion, ensuring that those responsible for Alicia's tragic death would be held accountable for their actions. The arrests of Alexis Hale, Jared Phelps, and Kevin Lewis marked the beginning of a long and arduous journey through the legal system, The trials of the three individuals, each charged with their roles in the tragic murder of Alicia Canales Maguire, garnered significant public attention. The community, still reeling from the shock and grief of the incident, closely followed the proceedings, hoping for justice to be served. The trial of Alexis Hale was the first to commence. The prosecution presented a compelling case, relying heavily on the digital evidence from social media, the physical evidence from the crime scene, and her own confession. Alexis, despite her earlier admissions, pleaded not guilty, claiming coercion and manipulation by Kevin Lewis. However, the jury was unconvinced by her defense. After a brief deliberation, Alexis Hale was found guilty of second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20 years, reflecting the gravity of her involvement and the premeditated nature of the crime. Jaredon Phelps faced his trial next. Like Alexis, Jaredon's defense attempted to paint him as a reluctant participant, pressured by Kevin Lewis's influence. However, his detailed confession and the corroborative evidence left little room for doubt. The prosecution's case was bolstered by the testimonies of forensic experts and witnesses who linked Jaredon to the crime scene. The jury found Jaredon Phelps guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. His sentence was more severe, with the judge imposing a life sentence without the possibility of parole, underscoring his active role in the murder and the need for accountability. The final and most anticipated trial was that of Kevin Lewis. As the alleged mastermind behind the attack, Kevin faced the most serious charges. The prosecution meticulously laid out the evidence, portraying Kevin as a manipulative and vengeful individual who orchestrated the entire plan to harm Amanda Canales. Witness testimonies, including those from Alexis and Jaredon, painted a damning picture of Kevin's involvement. The defense's attempts to discredit the testimonies and suggest alternative theories were ineffective. Kevin Lewis was ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and multiple counts of violating a restraining order. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The tragic case of Alicia Canales Maguire's murder came to a somber yet just conclusion with the trials and sentencing of Alexis Hale, Jaredon Phelps, and Kevin Lewis. Alicia's life, filled with compassion and dedication to her family and work, was cruelly cut short in an act of senseless violence. However, the relentless efforts of the investigators and the judicial system ensured that those responsible were held accountable. Justice served in this case provided a measure of closure to Alicia's family and the Everett community, who had been deeply affected by her loss. The sentences handed down to Alexis, Jaredon, and Kevin reflected the severity of their actions and the premeditated nature of the crime, sending a clear message about the consequences of such heinous acts. We invite you to share your thoughts and opinions on this case in the comments below. Your perspectives are valuable, and we encourage a respectful and thoughtful discussion.